This video is going to provide a brief overview of how to use the item bank in Elluminate to create personalized assessments. So the first thing you're going to want to do is to go over to the Assessments tab on your left and click where it says Visit Item Bank. That is step one. And then we'll wait for it to take us to the item bank, which is considered, for all intents and purposes, to be a different part of Elluminate than the part that we're currently in. So now we're in the item bank. Once we get here, the next step is to click on where it says Assessments. Here on this screen, we can choose to create an assessment. You could also do it through the Create button up here. They'll both take you to the same place, but for our purposes, currently I'm going to click the green Create Assessment button. Then it will give you two options, whether to create an assessment in standard mode or quick mode. For reasons that I can't get into right now, you want to choose standard mode. Quick mode is only going to cause you headaches. So choose standard mode and then click next. Now we're at the beginning of our assessment creation. And notice the way Elluminate has things laid out. The steps for creating an assessment are listed across the top. You have step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're currently in step 1, which is providing basic information, meaning essentially we have to give our assessment a name. I'm going to call this test assessment. Okay, and then we could give it information that the following information below. We can choose to give it an academic year, although these aren't required. We can choose a grade level, we can choose a subject matter, and these are just tagging features. These aren't going to affect anything that goes in your assessment. They're just ways of labeling essentially the assessment that you create. And then I'll hit the Create button. Okay, now that I've provided basic information and given it a title. Step 2, as you'll notice at the top, is that we're going to choose standards. So I'm going to go and use this drop-down menu first to choose the type of standards, which I'm going to choose Common Core State Standards. Next, we're going to need to choose a subject matter. For our purposes right now, I'm going to choose English Language Arts. And then, of course, a grade level. And for me right now, I'm going to look at high school. We're going to do grades 9 through 10 English Language Arts. I could do 11 and 12, or I could do 7 and 8, which are separate. Okay, but we'll choose 9 to 10 English Language Arts for this demonstration. Now, what that'll bring up below is this drop-down menu that you see here. Notice it's broken into the 4 claims: reading, writing, speaking, listening, and language. And we can begin using these drop-down arrows in order to drill further into this particular claim and get to some actual specific standards. So I'm going to start opening this up. 2856 items starting. Let's open it up. And now we get down, it breaks it into literature informational. For our purposes this time, I'm going to actually choose informational. Now we're into key details, craft and structure, integration of ideas. I'm going to open up the key ideas and details, and you'll see now that I finally arrive at some actual standards. So I'm going to choose, for my particular assessment, I'm going to choose RI 1 and RI 2. And that's how many items are available for each of those standards in terms of test items. So I've chosen the 2 items, and notice it created a counter for me over here. It's going to count the number of items that I put on my assessment. And now I'm going to move to step 3, which is adding the items, now that the standards have been chosen. Okay, that brings me to this screen. Now, I can just hit search, and it will show me every item that's available on standard 10.1 and 9.10.1 and 9.10.2. Or I could further filter these the items that I'm going to get. One way that you may want to filter is by, under the Attributes tab, choosing depth of knowledge. So you can choose only items that are at a 4 depth of knowledge. But that will limit the amount of items you have to choose from significantly. So for the demonstration right now, I'm just going to search for these 2 standards, and I'm not going to limit anything else. So I click search, and we wait for a moment as it searches. Now the search is completed, so I can scroll down, and we'll notice that here's the first passage, the Gettysburg Address, and it's going to show me the items that follow it. This one addresses 10.1, 9.10.1, I should say more accurately, and so does this one. If I keep scrolling down, I've got another passage from Glacier Point. Notice that this is standard RI2 that this one covers. And it has two questions. It has another one that covers RI2. Now, the big question is, well, how do we add the items? So I decide that I want to add these items by clicking the Add button in the bottom right-hand corner of each item. You'll notice it has a button that says Add, and it saves as we go. It's much like Google. This is much like a Google Doc, and then it will save our work and what we add as we go. I'm going to add another item for standard 910.2 RI. And over here, it's keeping a counter of how many items I have regarding that particular standard. Notice I don't have any on RI1. So I'm going to actually scroll up and grab a couple of these two RI1 items for the sake of the demonstration and add them to the assessment. Now, even if we add something to the assessment, which turns out that we don't want, it's not a big deal because the next step is to review item selections. And when we get to reviewing item selections, it's going to allow us to take out items that we maybe didn't want on the assessment. So you can either click next or you can click this box. Both will take you to the next step in the process. I'm going to click next and click it with the left side rather than the right. And that shows me now, I'm on step 4, what's contained within my assessment. And these are the items that I've chosen to include in my assessment. I've got 2 for RI1 and 2 for RI2. Now, if at any point I wanted to see what this looked like before I moved any further, I can always hit the preview button up here in the upper right-hand corner, and it'll show me how my assessment looks from a student's vantage point at the current point. So hit begin test, and I can click through. This is what my test looks like right now if it was given digitally. I can click to the next question. It shows me how the assessment looks currently. Click to the next question, and so on and so forth. And once I'm done reviewing how it looks, the preview, I can just close the tab at the top of the screen, and it will take me back to my review item selection screen. Now, I decided that one of the two items on my first passage I don't want, the second one. Let's say this item, I don't want it. Okay, turns out. All you have to do to remove an item at this point is click the X in the upper right-hand corner, and it will remove that item from your assessment. Okay, at this point, I think I have what I want. So I'm going to progress next to preparing a test booklet in case I wanted to give this on paper. At this stage, you can choose all the features that you would like to have included in your test booklet. The one recommendation I will make is to choose full page in terms of the way it's going to display. When you put it in columns and things it tends to distort the way that it's laid out on the page. So choose full page. But whatever other options you want to include, that's fine. If at any point you want to see an example of the test booklet, what it looks like, you can hit generate. Otherwise, you can hit save this as the default and move on to your next step, which is to publish. Okay, once I get here and I think I've got an assessment that I like, and keep in mind, you can jump back and forth between these steps and you're not going to hurt anything. If I go back to step 4, I can continue reviewing item selections, and then I can go back to publish whenever I want. And as previously stated, it saves your work the whole time, so don't feel like you're going to lose something. But I got here and everything looks like I want it, so I'm going to publish the assessment, which is this green button, which is going to put a copy of it back out in Elluminate. Since we're in the item bank, it's going to put your copy back into the larger portion of Elluminate. So let me hit publish. And it looks like my assessment was successfully published. So now I've got to go back and find the assessment in the proper part of Elluminate and share it with whomever I may want to share it with. So I'm going to return to Elluminate with this button up here. And the hope is that my assessment will already be published when I get back. And look, there it is at the top of the list. It has indeed been published. And so sometimes it takes a couple of minutes. If that happens, don't worry. It will appear here before you know it, okay? But the next step is that I want to open up this assessment and share it with some people, maybe the members of my team, other individuals who are going to be giving the test. And so I would go in here and scroll down, and right down here at the bottom, I can begin managing sharing that process. And in the manage sharing process, I can choose to share it with a site and grade level. I can share it with an individual user. So I can share it with Judy Bauer if I need to, okay? And I would just find their name and then share it with that individual, giving them the right to administer, and then clicking the share button. Good luck.